Hey guys, it's Bonnie from Dwelling Logs. I wanted to come on and talk about what we are doing for our last term of school. And yet, when I've done this before, I have the term organized, I have it printed out, and I started doing that, but it is spring and it is so busy. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to show up today. It's already the middle of March. We've already started our Canadian studies. That is our topic for our last term, which is really fun for a few different reasons, and I'll explain why. But it has been really interesting to go at it without my normal term table that I've showed you guys in other videos. I have no term table, and I will have to say a few things just right off the bat. No term table. It is, in a way, it's nice because we definitely feel more free to like do other things and prioritize other things. We aren't getting to the little stuff. Like even our Bible reading has gone way down because usually it's like, oh, this is the passage we got today. Not that we're not doing Bible, we're doing Bible in other ways, but not the reading plan that I had planned out. Some of the smaller readings, like, I feel like I don't like being a checklist person because I don't want to get trapped into like, you have to check the boxes. But I do like looking at the week and be like, oh, we haven't crossed that one off. We haven't crossed that one off. And just knowing, like, especially when it comes Friday, like, hey, what other readings should we get in to kind of complete our thing? And sometimes if it's a subject that it doesn't really have to do with our topic, I'm not worried about when we finish or timeline or anything. Like something like Latin, we can let Latin sit. I do not want to get behind on Latin, but it's one of those things where if we want to sit and stay with this chapter for 2-3 weeks, we can, because Latin goes on, whereas Canadian studies, I want to get through my material. Otherwise, I'm going to feel like, shoot, like, we ran out of time. We didn't get to learn all we did. We didn't get to finish the book, all the rest. So I am going to make a table. I need to make a table. And I also want to make one because end of the year is coming and I don't want to homeschool late. I want to do something like maybe a mid-May cutoff, end of May at the latest. I really want that big summer. So I think that's very achievable as homeschoolers. We can do that. So I'm excited for that. Let me show you a little bit of Canadian studies and why I chose this stuff. Okay, I got a whole different sweater on. Okay, so let me show you what made me choose Canada this year. Partly, I remember doing Canada in grade 4, and I don't care what grades my kids do Canada in, but partly it was like, it felt like time to do Canada. But I've had this unit for years, the digital, Gather on Homeschool, where's the light coming from? Canadian government. So I've had this for a while and I wanted to use it. The teacher's guide I use on my computer. My kids each have their own individual workbook. This is one of their mini units. And with Canada having an election coming this year, I really wanted to make sure that we did a Canadian government unit, kind of got back into that mindset. The last election, my kids were younger, but it was still fun. We did some YouTube research and some more looking into the difference of Canadian parties. And it was really good, but it was kind of on the fly. And so this time I wanted to do an actual unit. I feel like I get my politics mixed up between the USA and Canada and like some of my names. Like I was like, what is the Governor General? What does it do? I don't understand. How is Mary or Elizabeth our Queen again? And yet, no, it's King Charles. I'm like, oh, like honestly, there's so many fun things that we could do as we dive into Canadian government, including understanding the monarchy. I realized the other day that I kind of know the God Save the King tune, but not really. I was like, wow, actually, I don't have the words memorized. Maybe we should learn that. Make sure that my homeschooled kids have their Canadian national anthem down too, O Canada, which they do. But I was considering maybe we learn the second verse to it. In the church hymnal to the church we used to go to, they had 2 verses in the hymnal. Not that we ever sang it in church, but I kind of thought it'd be fun to learn the second verse. So I have Canadian government from Gather on Homeschool. It's a 20 lesson unit, and then I also printed this one. This is just a really short Canadian government snapshot from Wonder House Creative. She makes great stuff. She always advertises or like people talk about her great stuff for middle school. I know middle school is a really lost kind of space in especially the kind of print at home printables stuff for homeschooling. So if you have a middle schooler, check out Monique. She has so much stuff that you're going to love. And as well as high school, as her kids get older, she just keeps on making stuff for them to do. I've always found, my oldest is only in grade 6 this year, and we've been printing off her stuff for at least 2 or 3 years. I find it's really easy to do with younger kids as well. If there's anything that's too complicated, you can just skip over it, read through it. You don't have to do every single activity. So I also printed off her Canadian government lesson pack. And then I'm going to try to like cover it up. I have an online friend who is making a pack on the War of 1812. I think she plans to make more Canadian packs as well. Turn this around. This isn't out yet. But I'm going to have to share about it again when it is. Maybe by the time I do like my wind up, I'm not sure. But I wanted to learn more about the War of 1812, and this mama is very Charlotte Mason. And so this is a literature-based guide. So I have taken her guide. I've gone through her book recommendations. She shows you which ones are spine, which ones are extra, like optional, some more like age breakdown for books. So I have hunted my library, my own shelves. I bought a couple of books, actually at really great prices on Amazon and Indigo for some to go with that. And so once that's done, we will do this. And I'll show you guys later. But I'm excited about it. She's got a little bit of a write-up with how the literature goes, and it's really cool because, too, she is Canadian, but her husband is American. And when they talk about the War of 1812, they're like, that's not how it went. Like, each of them think that, and it's like, wow, it's funny and humorous. And the other thing, too, is she has a real heart for not just the perspective of the Europeans, but also she wanted to find literature from the perspective of the Indigenous peoples too, which I think is really cool. So she's got all the resources and recommended and stuff there. I'm gonna have to share more about that later because first of all, we haven't done it yet. Secondly, it's not released yet. So anyways, just giving you a little inside scoop heads up. Okay, and then the other thing that we're doing intentionally is The Story of the World, Volume 4. Now, you are supposed to read Story of the World from, like, the book 1 to 4. You're not supposed to jump around. You're not supposed to do it topically. You're supposed to do it from one to the other. Plus, the language as it's written, it's, like, written in a little more littler kid language, like simpler vocabulary for book 1, and increasing. Like, the intention is to do these 4 books over some years in your homeschool. And so we're jumping into book 4. We're breaking all the rules because book 4 has, I want to get a few things in. Let's see. It starts with Britain's empire. So I thought that was a great place to start. Plus, we were just doing Roman Empire last quarter, and kind of how England came to be, the Anglo-Saxons, and we studied Beowulf and all that. So this is kind of fun to jump to Victoria. So it's Victoria's England, and then it goes through chapter 3, 4. Chapter 5 is the American Civil War. When did I want to go to? Anyway, and then there's a bunch kind of at the sort of the start of the world. 2 empires, 3 republics, becoming modern, 2 empires, 2 rebellions. I have not marked where we were going to start. Revolution in the Americas, war in the world. Revolution begins, war ends. National uprisings, armies in China. The end of World War II. Okay, so like we could probably just maybe decide when we wanted to just halt. And I don't think we're going to go through this entire book in this short time. But I wanted to give at least until, like, Victoria is, like, her era is when Canada started. So I wanted to at least start this book as we're learning about Canada. So anyway, so today we just started actually this today, and we learned about the Britain Empire and how they began to govern India. And so we're going to continue with that. So Story of the World, we're breaking all the rules, and we don't care. Okay, and then, I have like a whole bunch of really old books from my mom's old homeschooling stash, and I was like just looking for Canada stuff. So We have these Canadian album series, like all of this is probably going to be not in print anymore. But anyway, large mammals. I actually really like these. Nature Stories for Children. There's a simple picture, and then there's a story-based telling of the animal, and then you get some animal facts afterwards, and they're all Canadian animals. They say large mammals, but there's like all kinds of, they're like large and medium mammals. So my youngest really enjoyed that. I think my older kids liked the one I read today too about the Wolverine, because again, story, very Charlotte Mason story based, not just like facts and like the Wolverine, blah 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 blah. It's like, no, it tells a story about the Wolverine, how it went and like finished scavenging the carcass of a caribou and whatnot. It was very good. I feel like that was not a good representation of how good it is, but it is. And then I also found these. Now, I remember these. I don't remember ever reading them in our homeschool, but they're like a set. Western Profiles, Tales, Tall and True, Road to Yesterday, Western Moods, and Panorama. And I don't know what kind of set this is. I just kind of flipped through them. They look like maybe they're like old tale stories. I think one has some poetry in it. So I'm not sure if we're going to use them or not, but I thought, hey, I'm going to bring them upstairs and we'll see. I'll look through them and see what happens. And then there were these three kind of random guys. Canada, Growth of a Nation. Like also old history books. I'm kind of like, ooh, cringe. Hopefully they're okay. So I am not recommending yet. Souvenirs compiled. Oh, this was a poetry one, wasn't it? Oh, stories, I guess. Little stories. That I found. And then Discovering Canada. This one here. They're all like really nice. Oh, whoa. My mom has rose petals coming out of them. I guess I better get these back to her in case she wants them. They've been here for 35 years. Anyway, so what I did with these three books, I don't have a plan yet because I haven't made my term table, you guys. See, that really makes me efficient. I'm not a planning person, but the term table does something to me. I don't know. Anyways, what I told my son, my oldest son, because he loves to read, he has the capability of reading and narrating larger chunks. I'm still working on that with the younger kids, just their reading skills. And so I told him, can you just pick a book that looks interesting and you start reading it on your own time, and then you can just narrate to me what's going on. So he chose this one. He chose this Canada, Growth of a Nation. And so it starts off with some of the Indigenous people stuff and kind of where that doesn't look like it at the beginning. That's what he told me. And how how some tribes moved around and some didn't, like some were nomadic, the farming that happened with the First Nations, the First Canadians. So far, I think it's been very good, very ethical, like fine. But I would really like to do that with my oldest son, is start to put into his hands some stuff that he can do that we aren't all going to do as a group, but he can still narrate back to me. I have to find a way for him to branch off. I don't want to hold him back by my love of family unit studies. I really love doing everything as a family. I think we can do way more as a family than we do in the average homeschooling home. But I am seeing that he could take off running if I just gave him a little wiggle room. So I'm okay with that. So he's picked that. I also found this downstairs. I've seen this in other people share this on Instagram. So I'm assuming that it will be pretty cool for a Canadian book. Looks well illustrated and stuff like that. We'll go backwards here. Anyway, so I'm excited about that. So Canadian government and our election is what inspired the topic, as well as something I really wanted to do for a while is home geography. Also, disclaimer, in the summer, I love to focus on local ecology. So this is kind of rolling into the summer too. I want my kids to have my phone number memorized, my husband's phone number memorized. We don't do a lot of like babysitting and in and out. So and because we homeschool, we haven't needed emergency numbers memorized. And I'm like, you guys should know this already. Wow. And my oldest did pen pal stuff, so he's kind of got our address and stuff figured out. But my younger ones, like they're still learning reading, but they are old enough to know how to write their full name because we have larger names and we have nicknames for our kids, and they think their nicknames are their names. Anybody else? And so they learn their full name, their box number, how to write it out, and that kind of thing. So we are working on that, working on them being able to find Canada and our province on a globe. So working with local geography, but like both from like a little perspective, like a micro perspective and a macro perspective. Like now, like look at the entire globe, find us. Where are you? Where do you live? So it's been really fun. The kids have enjoyed it. They can be very engaged because it's them, right? And so that's been great. So we're kind of tying that stuff into it. I did have some more thoughts about like nature study. Okay, for poetry, our poet, we're still working on this one. What's it again? The Cremation of Sam McGee by Robert William Service. Now, Robert William Service is a Scotsman, but he moved to Canada. He spent a lot of time working in BC, went down to Seattle, back to BC. I think he went and retired in like Paris or something. So he's kind of a European guy, but he's got Canadian history. Canadians love his poetry. So we're still going to count this as our poet carrying on from last term. And this is a huge poem, guys. I don't think we're going to have it memorized until Christmas, but Christmas is my goal. So he fits enough into Canadian studies. That's still our poet. If we want to learn more about poetry, or our poet in particular, we can do more of his study. But for now, we're going to work on his poetry. For artist study, I haven't chose anyone specifically. I had a few in mind, but I was like, we actually did studies on them through the last few years. So instead, I might just bump it to art with our nature journaling. I'm not sure. I should do artist studies. I don't know. There's a few that I have bookmarked. I just have to go back and, I don't know, maybe print some of them out. Maybe look at some more modern artists. Sometimes I like classic art, and so I go back too far. But maybe I need to look at some more modern artists and see. Anyways, we still have this book, and we still have our Handbook of Nature Study, which honestly we don't use that much. If you use this book, can you tell me like how you get the pages worn out and being used? Because I feel like it's very large. Everyone has this book. When I started homeschooling, I was like, whoa, the next generation totally has this book. Everyone does. And I just find it big to bring along with me. And if I don't bring along with me, I don't use it. So anyway, so that we have our nature drawing journal stuff from John Merlauz. And then our library, we got a Saskatchewan, Manitoba nature guide, which is honestly, it's fantastic. My daughter loves looking at this book, and it's got like all our different fish and the 4 different snakes that we have in our area. I mean, actually in our area we only have garter snakes, but in the larger area where we are. And yeah, it's good. Anyways, so I was thinking we would use this one probably more for nature study this year. It's still super snowy out. We got snowbanks higher than me outside. So it's not that we're going to do a lot of new nature study outside, but in the winter, I like to kind of combine it with, yes, we can go for walks and we can notice changes in nature, but we have such a long dormant season in our plant life around, and animal life is so like hit and miss if you're going to see something. But I do like to do some maybe online YouTube with different creatures, or books like this, where we can, especially with this Canadian Studies unit, we can just hone in on our local wildlife, which is really cool. And that I can actually pair that well with those like nature stories from children. So that is my plan for the next term. And I would like to wrap all this up by the end of May at the latest. I think we're going to continue our poetry through the summer because I don't want to lose our poetry memorization. But other than that, but I got to get a term table together, and I got to come back after it's said and done, or at least after we're like doing it well. Then I can come back and be like, this is what I think about this book, and this is what I think about that book, or here's what we add or threw out or whatever, right? So, but what I have discovered is the term table really helps us focus and actually get things done. Because oftentimes we get through the day with the big subjects done, and I'm like, oh yeah, we had some extra time. We could have done that. And anyways, either way is good though. It's springtime. My kids want to be outside. We got chickens, little chicks over there. We got more in the shop. We've got eggs in the incubator. We got piglets coming. It's going to be a busy spring. So We'll see how it goes. Life, everything moves over for life sometimes. But anyway, that is my sharing for the day for now. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you maybe got some ideas for Canadian studies of your own, and how you can kind of mix and jumble those together. And yeah, we will come back and update you pretty soon.